Now, why would you want to take a class in Old Norse in some unair-conditioned building on some campus full of unfriendly people paying tens of thousands of dollars to do it when for free you can look at this and get the same kind of instruction minus some of the interaction in the subject that I was able to give my students for 3 years at UCLA? Well, let's keep going. I talked about the basic types of weak verbs, and we looked at the verb vera, which means to be. Now, let's crack open strong verbs and get a sense of what those are. Now, as I mentioned, strong, weak, more or less what you can get out of this is that the strong verbs are a little bit more complex. However, although they are numerically fewer than the weak verbs, you will more often see a given strong verb than a given weak verb. This is true in English as well. Think about the verbs that have irregular past tenses in English. These are typically strong verbs in the Old Norse sense. Give, gave, take, took, drive, drove. You say those all the time. Whereas discombobulate has the normal weak past tense, discombobulated, but how often do you say discombobulate? It's the frequent words that tend to preserve the most irregularities, and that is something that is going to occasionally cause you pain as you go through learning Old Norse. So all right, strong verbs. Let me just pull off a Band-Aid and just show you one, and it's present and past tenses. This one is also very similar to the example I just used in English. It's the verb give, that's geva. All right, so just like with a weak verb, we knock off that A to add our endings. We get our root gev, very similar, of course, to English give. But if an I-type weak verb, like mala, has I's in the present singular endings, mali, malir, malir, and an A-type weak verb like skapa has A in the present singular, skapa, skapar, skapar, a strong verb has nothing there. So ek gev, with no ending, I give. Thu gever, no ending, and then the R, instead of ir or ar. Thu gever, you give. Han gever, he gives. And then in the plural, we have the same endings as in the weak verbs. Ver gevum, we give. Ther gevid, y'all give. Their geva, they give. Now, what's particularly different about strong verbs is that the past tense doesn't involve creating a past stem by the means of adding a T, a D, an eth, or an aeth. Instead, we take that same root and we change the vowel in the root, and then we add some endings. Now, this is, of course, similar to English. Instead of I give, I gived, we say I give, I gave. And in Old Norse, we say ek gev, past tense ek gav. And then thu gaft, you gave. Hon gav, she gave. Ver govum, we gave. Ther govud, y'all gave. Thar golvu, they gave. Now, these endings, nothing, t, nothing, ooth, oo, are consistent for the past tenses of all strong verbs. However, what you change the root of the verb into is not consistent. Geva is part of a class of strong verbs called class 5 that work in a similar way. The root has an E, and the vowel's an E, and its dictionary base infinitive form, followed by a single consonant. So, gev, give, drepa, kill, kvedda, speak. And then we have the same vowel changes in the past tense. So let me give you another example of a class 5 strong verb. And I'm starting with these because they're very common. The numbering is sort of arbitrary, what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's look at kvedda. Speak means the same thing as mala, but an alternative, just like English say and speak are. So I speak. Take a moment if you want, pause the video based on geva, see if you can infer what the present and past tense would be, what I speak, you speak, I spoke, you spoke, etc. would be. Just pause and come back. All right, now let's look. Present tense. Ek kved, thu kvedder, that kvedder, ver kvedum, ther kvedid, thou kvedda. Past tense. Ek kvad, thu kvat. This is, if you wrote kvat, that's understandable. Eth plus t becomes tt, so thu kvat. That kvad, ver kvodum, ther kvodud, thou kvodu. One thing I will point out there, in the past tense with geva and kveda, is you might expect that in the past plural, where you've got that long a, that would be mutated into long hook-o. However, that does not occur. Actually, what's happened is that the long a has absorbed that mutated sound anyway, right? It's a rounded sound no matter what, as I mentioned in video 1 about pronunciation, as I've mentioned here and there elsewhere on this channel. So you don't have to worry about mutation when it's a long a, only when it's a short a, or you're going to get that a to long o mutation when it's followed by a u. So notice, we got a different vowel, not just in the present tense and the past tense, but in the past tense singular and the past tense plural. That's very common with strong verbs. So those are class 5. Let's throw a little bit of a wrench in this and look at a class 6, also extremely common, works a little bit differently. Let's take a look, as it were, at taka, take. In fact, this is the origin of the English word take. We don't use the Old English word. Present tense, ek tek, I take. Thu teker, you take. Han teker, he takes. What's going on? Oughtn't that to be tak taker taker? No. Here is one of those things that you have to learn, you have to give up about. In strong verbs, there once was an I in the ending. Now, this was before the I-type weak verbs actually had an I in the ending. That was a long I, or actually a long E at one point, that didn't cause this change. That I caused the vowel in the root to mutate if it was a back vowel. Now, if you look at the shape of your mouth, vowels in the case of Old Norse, like E, A, are made in the front of your mouth. In the back of your mouth, U, O, Ah. Now, if you have a back vowel, it is going to mutate in the present tense singular of a strong verb. Here are the mutations that occur. Ah becomes o becomes a, o becomes one of 3 different things depending. You just have to kind of learn it case by case. Long o becomes long u becomes e, right? It goes from regular u to surfer u. Long u becomes long surfer u. Yo or u, the J is included in the vowel in this case, becomes long surfer dude u. Hook o becomes either u or e, it's kind of case by case, and the diphthong o becomes the diphthong ui. So what's happened is that because taka has an a, letter a, in the root, in the present singular, that strong verb, we get this mutation, which is called I umlaut, or I mutation, because it's caused by an I that's not there anymore. And we end up with ek tek, thu teker, han teker. Now, the present plural is what you'd expect. If you want to pause this for a moment and think based on geva and kveda, what the present tense plural ought to be, pause it and think about it. All right, did you get it right? Because it's ver tokum, ther takid, ther taka. Remember the U mutation of A into hook O, right? Ver tokum, not ver takum. All right. Past tense, class 6, will change the A in the root to a long O, but this, unlike class 5, is consistent for past tense singular and past tense plural. Ek tok, I took. Thu tokt, you took. Hon tok, she took. Ver tokum, we took. Ther tokud, y'all took. Thar toku, they took. Now, I'm going to show you another class 6 strong verb and see if you can kind of get the hang of this. This one is Fara, related in English like fare, F-A-R-E, to go. This is the typical verb for traveling, for moving from one place to another place. All right, Fara, it's a class 6, it's going to work like taka. So pause the video if you want. Think about what Fara ought to look like in the present tense, I go, you go, and in the past tense, I went, you went. All right, did you think about it? See what you did. Present tense, ek fer, just like in taka, we're going to change that A to an E, and the present tense singular. Thu fer, yes, we're just going to add a second R to the root, because the root ends in R. Han fer, so that's you go, he goes. Present plural, we go back to the base vowel, although, since that's an A, it's going to mutate in front of the U in the first person plural, so we're going to get ver forum, their farið, and their fara. Then in the past tense, I went, ek for, you went, thu fort, he went, han for, we went, ver forum, y'all went, their foruð, they went, their forum. All right. Now, there are, as I mentioned, other classes and types. Unfortunately, the very most common ones tend to be from 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 6 are reasonably easy to learn. 7 basically has no single consistent pattern. You've just got a bunch of verbs that all work a little bit different, but still follow the basic principles of strong verbs. Let me give you an extremely common class 7, because you got to have this to move forward. This is få, which is get. It's often also used in the sense of can, like I can do something. You actually can sometimes say like I get it done. This is something modernized side that continues, although it uses a different verb, uses geta now. We'll talk about that later, but this is a verb you're going to see all the time, so you got to learn. Få. Take a moment, pause the video. Based on how the verbs we looked at, gava, kveða, taka, fara, work, think if you can figure out what the present singular and plural ought to look like. All right, here they are. Ek fa, so we got the I mutated long A to ash, ek fa, I get. Thu far, so the root is just a vowel, right? In principle, this verb in its root is for a. The a, however, is already absorbed into the root vowel long A. So there's nothing to knock off. We just add the ending straight to the root. Far, but the root is mutated because of the I mutation rule in the present singular of strong verbs. She gets hon far, so ek fa, thu far, hon far. Then we go back to our basic root vowel, ver foam. Sometimes the U is just swallowed up into the long A and you just get ver foam. Their foith, y'all get. And then the third person plural is always identical to the dictionary form, so it's just thar fo. Fa, thar, thar, fom, foith, fo. Past tense. This is where class 7s like fo are difficult because everyone kind of does something different. The past tense is singular. Ek fek, I got. Thu fekt, you got. Hon fek, she got. All right, so singular, the past tense root basically is fek. But then the past plural, we got ver fengum. Ther fenguth. Thar fengu. So we got the same endings ultimately as a weak verb or not the strong verb, uth, u. But for historical reasons that it takes a whole other class to explain, verbs like fo have past tenses that look basically nothing like their present tenses. Very similar to fo is another class 7, ganga. This is walk. Now, this looks like go, it is related English go, but it's only really used of either walking or of going in a metaphorical sense, like how is it going, right? It's going well, that kind of going. So ganga, walk. Pause, see if you can think of what the present would look like. All right, so you knock that A off and then add the endings, the same as the other strong verbs. Ek gang, I walk. Thu ganger, you walk. Han ganger, he walks. Easy enough. Got that A to E change because of I mutation in the present singular of strong verbs. Present plural, we walk, ver gongu, their gangið, and their ganga. What you ought to expect when you got that U in the first person plural mutating the A in the root into huko. Now, past tense, this is going to be like full, although not all class 7s are. So, based on full, what do you think the past tense would be? It's ek gek, thu gekt, and han gek. I walked, you walked, he walked. And then plural, ver gengum, ther genguð, their gengu. Again, same endings. All right, so I'm going to give you a few exercises followed by answers on the screen. Let me also give you some vocabulary to memorize. Class 5 strong verbs. Drepa, kill. Geva, give. Geta, get. Kveða, say. Class 6 strong verbs. Taka, take. Fara, go. Class 7 strong verbs. Learn få, get, and ganga, walk, or in a metaphorical sense, go. We'll move on with some more strong verbs as we go, some more strong verb classes. Again, those are 5, 6, and 7. 1 through 4 have some common verbs, not quite as common. I'm trying to keep these videos all about the same length to give you time to absorb the vocabulary, absorb the lesson before you move on to the next one, whether you're following along with these live as I'm posting them starting in mid-2020 or whenever in the future. If you got questions, remarks, need some clarifications, perhaps another exercise or two to sharpen yourself up, feel free to reach out on Patreon if you're a supporter of mine there. And for now, from the most beautiful classroom in the world, here high in the never summer mountains of northern Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.